So the archive of week two Drupal training office hours is on Hello Archive, and we'll just take some questions at the beginning from participants if there's anything you'd like to go over. Not everybody at once. Okay, so I'm going to jump in and go over to this week's lesson. First thing I'm going to do is log in. This is the demo site that I created last week, and I really haven't touched it since last week. So I'm basically just picking up where I left off, and I'm going to go through the steps for lesson 2 and take your questions. So for the second week's assignment, one of the first things we did was we created an about page. And if I go out of order from the assignment, I'm sorry, or you can remind me to kind of, if I skip something, whatever, just chime in and remind me. Okay, so I have some content types enabled. I'm going to create an about page and toggle the about page in my menu. So every page needs a title, and every page needs some content. I say every page needs some content. The body field is actually not required. The title field for every Drupal node is required. So you could really have a page or a node in Drupal that only has a title. The body field is an optional field, but I mean, most of the time it doesn't make sense to have a page with no body content. Then next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to provide a menu link. And I think at least one of you had some trouble with this aspect. If you don't see this tab here for menu settings, I'll show you how you can set it up elsewhere. So I'm going to provide a menu link title and description. The title of the menu link can be different than the title of the post. By default, they're the same, but you can override it. So you can say something like, about my library. And then the description is what shows up when you hover over the link in the front-end display when it's actually in the menu. When you hover over the menu button, the description is what pops up. And this is also what screen reader software would detect. So this can go into more detail. Click here to learn more about my library, whatever. It can be a little lengthier than the actual link title. That's it. So after those couple of steps, I have an about page, and the about page is in my main menu. So if I'm on the home page, I can see, in this theme anyway, the home page visually appears active, and the About My Library tab visually appears inactive. Okay, so one thing I'm noticing right now is I don't really like the way these are ordered, because it seems to make more sense for the home link to be the first thing on the left side. So to change the order of the menu, this is really easy. I can go to Structure, Menus, and then I can hit List Links under Main Menu. And then this is just a really simple drag and drop interface to change the order of the menus. If you don't have JavaScript enabled in your browser, this will look a little different. You'll see, instead of like the drag and drop handles, you'll see numeric weights. And so the higher numbers sink to the bottom. They're weighted heavier. So -50 is a smaller number than -49, and therefore -50 floats to the top. But typically, if JavaScript is enabled, you're just going to see these handles and you just grab one and drag it. This is a pretty common UI component, not just in Drupal, but all over the internet. So you're probably pretty comfortable with this. Hit Save Configuration. Now if I go back to the home page, the home link is first on my menu and the About My Library is second. Cool, so I'll pause if there are any questions. Speak up or type them. Okay, cool. The next thing we did for this lesson was to create a block for the home page. And I suggested sorry, I'm pausing. I got an email from a student who is having trouble joining. That's too bad. Yeah, I mean, obviously, those who are here did not have trouble joining. I'm sorry for those of you who did. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to... I hear some feedback or something. Is someone trying to ask a question? You know, if you... Maybe I'm causing the feedback. Are you guys hearing that? Okay, is this better? Okay, I think we... Okay, viewer 14 says sound is fine. I think I'm just hearing feedback on my end, so if it's not distracting to you guys, I'm just going to move on. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is create some blocks, or one block. And the block settings are in the structure area. Structure blocks. So the structure blocks admin area is where you create and administer all your blocks. What are blocks? Blocks are... Hang on, I'm going to pause for viewer 26 who wants to know how can I turn on audio. Let's see if I can... I want to turn off... I want to get this audio fixed. Okay, no feedback. Maybe. Sorry, guys. I am not an audio professional. Wow. Okay. I think it's getting better. Guys, sorry for the delays here. Okay, so what are blocks? Blocks are just pieces of HTML or scripting, such as PHP or JavaScript, that you can place in your in the a region of your Drupal site. And regions are defined at the theme layer. And this Bartik theme that we're using by default has several different regions that you can choose from. Most common regions are like header, footer, main body region, and sidebars. And Bartik offers a ton of other regions. How do you switch to VoIP? So to switch to VoIP, you can, I imagine you can hang up your phone and just click this phone button and choose to join by internet rather than by phone. I'm really sorry about the feedback. I'm going to look at my audio settings again and see if I can get this a little better. Okay, is this better? Can you still hear me? Can you guys still hear me? Can someone speak up if you can hear me? Okay, great. The feedback. Wow, some of you are saying it sounds fine. Some of you are saying there's a lot of feedback. So I don't know, but I'm gonna keep going, and I'm sorry if there is feedback. Again, you'll have some opportunities to complain about all this when you do your evaluation at the end. That's always like payback time. Okay, so to create, so again, blocks can contain HTML, which can just be text or images or any HTML. Blocks can also be used for PHP code or client-side scripting like JavaScript. So to create a new block, you simply click the Add Block link. And all blocks need at least a description. And the description is what shows up on the end user, I'm sorry, the admin user display. So my block description I'm going to use, well, I think in our assignment we were creating a block for your library hours. So I'll say main library hours. And then the block title can be different than the description. And this is what appears to the end user on the front end display. And then in the block body, you simply write some text. And this can be formatted however you want. I noticed a lot of you guys were using a table for this, and that's a great way to do it. I don't like coding tables because there's just too many tags involved. But So I'm just going to write some simple text here. And you know, I would normally want this to look a little cleaner, but this is just a demo. Okay, and then I have the ability to show the block in one of my regions. I'm going to put it in the second sidebar, which happens to be the right sidebar. And I'm going to say that the content should appear on every page. If I only wanted the content to be listed on certain pages, I could list those pages here. And this accepts some tokens, such as front. So I can list the block on only my front page. Or I can say I want it to appear on all pages except the front page. This doesn't have to be front, it can be any page. Oh, I think I heard a dog barking. So I can say all pages except front, or node 1, for example. This can also accept wildcards. So if I wanted it to show on all pages except for the blog section, I could do that. So if I say I want it to appear on all pages except for blog/star, the block will show up on every page except for URLs that begin with blog/. It's pretty self-explanatory. Also, you can just read the help text, and the help text goes over everything I just went over. For this example, I'm just going to have my simple block show up on every page. Hi, did someone just say something? I think I must be having trouble hearing you again. Maybe best to type your questions. I'm really sorry. You guys, again, are like guinea pigs. This is the first time any of us has ever used this software to do like live interactive stuff. And you know, technology can be frustrating sometimes. Okay, so the block that I just created should be there. So if I go to my home page, I see it. So the simple block that I just created is there. Any questions at this point?
If you enter block to the right side, and then press the bar.
So I didn't get that, unfortunately. Again, I think the audio is really bad. Can you try again?
I missed the part. How you add the block of the library hours to the right side.
Okay, so yeah, we've had a lot of distractions. I'm really sorry. So I went to structure, then blocks.
Join me. Okay.
Join me. Join me.
And then I hit add block.
Okay.
And then I gave the block a description. And the description doesn't show up for the end user. It just shows up for the admin user. It's for admin purposes. And then the block title is what does show up for end users. And then just some text goes here.
Okay.
This could also be things like, this could be PHP code or JavaScript, such as a widget, like a Twitter widget, or embed code from YouTube, or whatever you want. This doesn't have to be text.
Okay.
But in our case, it's just some simple text to describe
Okay.
your library, ours. And then choose a region, such as sidebar second. Second sidebar is the right sidebar.
Okay.
And then you can designate the block to show on any page, every page, no pages. This help text describes how to change which pages the block shows up on. But in our case, we want it to show up on all pages.
Okay.
And then I hit save. And I can hear you a lot better. I'm not getting the feedback. I think I finally solved my problems. I hope you guys can hear me okay still too.
It's much clearer now.
Viewer 27 asks, yeah, I am also having trouble hearing questions. Viewer 30 says we're still getting feedback. Oh no. So guys, type your questions. Viewer. Oh, and maybe mute your audio on your end. I mean, mute your mic on your end. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not an audio guy. Viewer 18 asks how to fit the text into text inside. Do we have to only use full HTML or fit in? Oh, okay. Well, the two input options that come with Drupal out of the box are full HTML and filtered. Filtered will strip out tags like it'll strip out image tags and embed tags and things like that. Full HTML will allow more tags. But that's not really the question you're asking. I think you're asking, what if the text or whatever you want to put in the sidebar just doesn't fit? If that's the case, then that's a theming issue. And what you need is a theme that accommodates a wider sidebar. So this theme that we're using, Bartik, has fixed width sidebars. And if you decided that you needed a wider sidebar, you would simply have to alter this theme or find a new theme. And we'll go over that a lot more in week 6. That said, we don't talk a whole lot about theming because it's a really complicated topic on its own. It's something I happen to
You
love.
can get that. Just open it.
Anne asks, do you have a diagram for the layout for the regions? I don't have a diagram, and this varies theme by theme. And so the one that we're using, Bartik, is a pretty, well, it's the default Drupal theme. So you could probably, I imagine you could find a diagram on the internet. Another option, Drupal 7 has the ability to demonstrate block regions theme by theme. So if I just hit that demonstrate block regions link, I can see a visual representation of the themes. Cool. Okay, any other questions or comments about block? Okay, Nita asks, can the width of the sidebar be altered by modifying CSS style sheet for this theme, or do we have to use a different theme? Nita's question is very good. This comes up a lot. The question is, if I want to alter the CSS, do I alter the CSS of this theme or create a new theme? What you would do, my recommendation is to create a new sub-theme of Bartik. So themes, themes can inherit, this is something that we'll talk about in more detail in week 6. And if you have no experience with themes, this might be really confusing, but I'll just say that themes can inherit aspects of other themes. So I could create a sub-theme of Bartik that inherits a lot of the aspects of Bartik, but then I can provide some overrides of my own. So if I wanted to keep like most of like the core of Bartik, but then just have a wider sidebar, I could, and I do this all the time. Every site that I build, and most people build sites by using sub-themes of another theme. I would create a sub-theme of Bartik and then alter the CSS in my sub-theme just enough to override. I would alter the CSS of my sub-theme just enough to override those layout settings. Everything else would essentially stay the same. Oh, Viewer 25 has a really helpful thought about minimizing feedback if telephones are muted, and that's generally a good idea when you do conference calls anyway, right? I don't do conference calls a lot, so I should have mentioned that earlier. Okay, any other questions about blocks or theming? Sounds like the sound is better now. I'm glad we got over this hump. Maybe next week it'll all go off without a hitch. Oh, my screen just disappeared. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about blocks. We talked a little bit about theming. Viewer 20 asks, how do you modify the CSS for a theme? Are we going to cover that later on? Yes, we're going to cover that in week 6. And if you've dealt with CSS before in other content management systems or other web platforms in general, I think theming will be basically pretty simple for you. If you've never worked with CSS or you don't really have any experience editing code at all, it might be complicated, but I'll demo it in week 6. Or if we have time at the end of the session today, I can demo it today. We'll just see what happens. But yeah, theming is a pretty awesome topic. It's a little advanced, I guess. Any other questions about this? Okay, with viewer 18 asks, within the sidebar options, there were ideas for normal. Okay. Viewer 18 is asking, why don't I have, in my demo, why aren't you guys seeing the WYSIWYG buttons? And it's just because I had filtered HTML on instead of full HTML. So if I turn on full HTML, I see those buttons. Not all of them. I don't have them all configured on the demo site, but Viewer 18, to answer your question, the buttons are there when full HTML is enabled. Viewer 14 says, sorry about the dog bark. And that's okay. You guys know I work from home, and Usually when I'm on a call with a client, my cats start fighting or something, and it's really embarrassing. Okay, so the next thing that we were talking about in week 2 was how to create front page content. So I'll move on to that if nobody else has questions about blocks. And of course, we can always come back to blocks, but I'm going to move on to front page stuff. So in the assignment, I mentioned 3 ways to create front page content. You can designate a particular node as your front page. You can use the core Drupal blog-like front page where promoted content gets promoted to the front page. And that's a core aspect of Drupal. Or you can override that core aspect of Drupal by creating a view that will act as your front page. And views, we'll talk more about views in coming weeks. We have 2 weeks dedicated to views because it's a big topic, but views are just views are dynamic displays of content. So if I wanted a list of the most recent news stories, or if I wanted a listing of upcoming technology classes at my library, any of those dynamic queries that you can imagine are possible with views. It's a big topic. We'll spend 2 weeks on it. I'm just mentioning it right now because it's one option for creating a dynamic front page.
But it sounded like a cat was in there.
Was that a question or background? Okay. So the first way to create front page content that I'll demo really quickly is you can create a static page, and in the configuration you can designate your static page as your front page. So I'm going to go to Add Content, Basic Page, and I'm going to say, this is my front page. And let's just see what this looks like. I'm going to remember the URL, node/2, and then in configuration, site information, I can set node/2 as the default front page and hit save. And then go home. And now on my home page, I see this is my front page. So I don't really like this because it's just not a very good title. So I can change the title to something that's a little more welcoming. Something like, welcome to my library. And hit save. The other thing I could do is I could use theming to just get rid of this header altogether, because sometimes it just doesn't make sense to have an H1 when the site name is already H1 for the front page. So sometimes it just makes sense to take the title out. If I wanted to do that, I could do it in the theme layer, which we won't really talk about too much more today. Does this make sense? This is the simplest way to designate your homepage content. Any questions about this? I'm pausing because I hear some typing maybe, which means maybe someone's asking a question via chat, text chat. The next way that we mentioned in the lessons for creating homepage content was to show the content that was promoted to front page as your front page. So this is the core Drupal blog-like functionality. If you don't designate a node as your front page, any content that you promote to front page will show up in like a blog roll. So I'm gonna undo what I just did. I'm gonna take away that node/2, go home, and then I forgot to save. Sorry. Save configuration. Go home, and it's going to say it's back to the default. So I'm back. I just undid what I did before. We're back to default, and then I'm going to create some content that's promoted to the front page. Just to do this quickly, I'm actually going to use a module that will generate some content automatically. I'm using the devel module, which I don't think is installed on your sites, but it's just a really nice way to generate some dummy content for development purposes. So I'm going to create 6 nodes dated back to a week ago. I'm only going to create blog entries, and I'm going to hit generate. So I just created 6 nodes, and by default, they'll just show up as like a blog roll on the front page. Does that make sense to everybody? This is just the default way of creating content in Drupal, and it looks very much like a blog or a news feed. Any questions about this?
How does the content get pushed to this area?
Can you type your question or say it again? Nita says, how do you add the content to this area or push out content to this area? Okay, so yeah, I glossed over that. So the way that you would add content to this area, first of all, if you want to do this, you can't have any node designated as your front page. So in other words, in that configuration page, site information, if this field has any content in it, in other words, if you designate a node as the default front page, you will lose the blog. You will lose this blog roll, this default blog roll. If you leave this blank, then any content that is toggled as promoted to front page will show up in the blog roll. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions about this so far? Well, one thing that a lot of you guys asked in the forum and even via email privately. Oh wait, I'm going to pause. Viewer 24 says, so anything can be promoted to the front page by checking that box. Yes, that's correct. you can promote any node to the front page. It doesn't have to be just from one content type. So it doesn't have to just be blogs. It can be anything. I'm going to back up. A lot of you asked via the forum or email whether it was possible to have a dynamic feed and some static content. And the answer is, of course, yes, because you can do anything in Drupal, right? But how do I have some static content plus dynamic like blog roll? There's two ways. Probably the simplest way to do it would be to create a block with your static content and then let the dynamic blog feed, blog roll, sit underneath the block. So I'm going to demonstrate that really quick. Go to Structure, Blocks. I'm going to add a block. This is some static content. And I can place this block in my highlighted region or my content region. I think either one of those will be fine. Again, you can see what the regions. You can see how the regions look by toggling on that.
Good God, what is going on here?
You can put. I'm going to back up. Okay, so you can put the block in the highlighted region or the content region. I think either one of those will be fine. And you can see a diagram of what the regions look like by toggling on that View Regions button that I showed earlier. In this case, I want this block to appear only on the front page. Because remember, we're creating some static content that'll just be on the front page. And let's go back to the front page and see what it looks like. Okay, so here's my block. This will be some static content, and here is the blog roll. Is this what you guys were asking earlier? I suspect this was what you were asking. Anne asks, how do you harvest content from another blog? This is a really good question. How do I harvest content from another blog? The way that I typically, would harvest content from another blog would be with the feeds module. I'm going to type this in. It should be at drupal.org/project/feeds. Okay, so the feeds module is kind of an open platform for bringing in content. I use this a lot, not just for like blogs, but for, I don't know, for like migrating content from an older CMS, or I use it in a lot of cases. It's just, I know like this isn't really a, we weren't really planning on talking about feeds for the office hours, but on a lot of sites, like we just rolled out a new site for Oak Park Public Library, and we have some cool stuff with feeds on the front page. We have like these new arrivals coming from the, well, they're provided from staff via CSV files. It's just part of their normal workflow. We've just captured that workflow and used it to feed content to the front page. So feeds module can do a lot of cool things for library sites. Check it out. Okay, Nita asked earlier, static content will always be in top. No, static content will not always be in top. When I created this block, I put it in the highlighted region. The highlighted region happens to be above the content region, but I could put it in the content region, click Save, and then in the block config area, I can actually change the order of well, where the content appears. So if I put the static content below the main page content, it should sync below the blog feed. Yeah. So now the static content is at the bottom. So you can put the blocks anywhere. They can go, in any region of the site. Any other questions about this? I'm going to pause just because I hear some typing. Viewer 18, thank you. Yeah, I'm proud to show off the Oak Park site. Viewer 18 asks, how do you add the photos, or does that come later? Which photos are you asking about? Any visual content. Okay, well, in general, you could add a photo in a number of different ways. I could embed a photo in a block. So let's go back and edit this block. I could, if I flip over to full HTML, I can add an image right here in the body. I'm just kind of going through it quickly, but what I can do is if I hit the image button and then browse server, and then I can choose a file off my desktop to upload. Let's see if I always have random screenshots on my desktop. So let's, oops. Yeah, here's some screenshots. Let's just upload a screenshot. And then insert file, okay. Well, this is not going to be pretty, but you'll just get to see how you add images. And now the screenshot is in my block. So viewer 18 as a follow-up asks, well, I guess I went too fast, I'm sorry. So I'm back to the block body edit page. Click this image button. If you don't have this image button, go back to your WYSIWYG settings and make sure that you've enabled the buttons for image and IMCE. So IMCE, and you can read about it at drupal.org/project/IMCE. IMCE is a piece of software that allows you to upload images from your desktop, from your hard drive, and put them on the server. So now I hit Browse Server, and then I can hit Upload. It's a convoluted process, but once you get used to it, it's not that big a deal. So once I choose a file, then I insert the file. And then, can you move them around in the block? Yes, of course. So I'm going to cancel this. So I have some text and I have an image, and you can kind of drag it around and put it before or after the text. Now this takes some getting used to, and you kind of have to understand what's going on in the code. the image, I'm going to flip over to the source view. So it all depends where the image tag is located in relation to the text. And then CSS also plays a big role in image placement. So it's getting a little more advanced. It takes some practice to get used to image placement on the web. But yeah, you can certainly place an image wherever you want within the block, or you can put the image, you can put the block itself anywhere on the page. Oh, okay. Viewer 18 says I don't have the browse server option. Yeah, check your WYSIWYG and IMCE settings. And email me or post to the forum if you're still having trouble. It can be really frustrating to get all this stuff configured with all the settings and permissions and so forth. But we'll figure it out. Just email me or post to the forum. Anne asks, where are the uploaded image files stored? That's a really good question. Do we have time? We've got a minute. The image files are stored in I already have some. I'm flipping over to FileZilla, and I have this is not the same Drupal site that we're working on, but it's structurally very similar to our Drupal site. So on the server itself, from the root of the Drupal installation, you can go to Sites, Default, Files, and typically the files are all stored right here. So if you wanted to upload them directly via FTP, you could put them in that files folder. I think I'm getting a question from viewer 21. Okay. Yeah, viewer 21, can you just post to the forum or email me as a reminder and just give me your site URL, and I will take a look. We've got like 2 minutes until 1 p.m. Are there any other questions? Oh, okay. To change the order, question is, how do you change the order of menu tabs? Go to Structure, Menus, and the main menu is called Main Menu, which is self-explanatory, but it's a little confusing because there's a menu called Navigation, which isn't really anyway. Just remember it's Main Menu, and then List Links. And then you have this drag and drop interface to change the order. And you can also have like submenus, parent-child relationships. So I can have like a submenu of home. In this case, I want them to be equal in the hierarchy. Need to ask, do we have to provide the link for read more for the blog? Do you have to provide? Okay, so Nita's asking about this read more link that's associated with the core blog roll view. Without getting into theming, I don't think there's any way to get rid of that read more link. If you wanted to show the entire node in other words, if you wanted to show the entire post in this blog feed, you could set up a view that overrides this core functionality and display the entire post in one place without including the read more link. Or you could get rid of the read more link by taking it out in the theme layer. Does that answer your question? Kind of. Can you show how to enter the content into blog? Yeah. So to add content as a blog post, you just go to Add Content, Blog Entry, and just fill in some content. And then make sure it's promoted to front page. In this case, we want it to be promoted to front page. And my new post just shows up. Guys, it's a minute after 1, so I'm happy to stick around, but I just wanted to say thanks for joining us today. Again, sorry about the audio, but I think we discovered that by muting the mic on your end, the feedback is dramatically lessened. So thanks for that kind of group effort in figuring that out. I don't do conference calls a lot. I should have just known to mention that to you. Anyway, thanks for coming. I will stick around if you guys have more questions. Otherwise, see you next week. Need to ask, can you please go back to show the place to enter the URL for read more? Well, there's no URL for read more. It just shows up automatically. The read more link is just themed or programmed to lead to the full post. Okay, viewer 28 asks, are you going to use a different interface next week? I can experiment with different interfaces. Thanks for asking. If you have some suggestions, I'd love to hear them, because this is all a big experiment for me. So you can email me privately or just, get in touch. Any other questions? If not, let's go get lunch. Okay, thanks guys. I'm gonna sign off.